I just got the Bambu X1-Carbon. I'm really excited to check it out. I'm gonna open it up and give you guys my first impressions. I'm gonna see how it looks. I'm gonna boot it up, see how it runs. Let's go get the box. Yeah, okay, it wasn't that heavy, but it was 25 pounds, good amount. At this moment, I was really excited. Only took 2 or 3 days to arrive. There it is. I took it out, and that's when the excitement really set in. Found a table just downstairs that wasn't really being used, just a side table. I'd recommend a little bit of a sturdier table than this because you can get some pretty intense wobble if you don't get a sturdy enough table. So definitely at least make sure the table is really level. You might want to do a little wobble test, shake it around a little bit. That is the lid for the X1-Carbon. You just set it on top, doesn't click in. Here's all the stuff that it came with. Ooh, An extra nozzle. Bunch of little extras, but then some cords that you're gonna have to plug in later. 2 different ones, they are distinct. One is 6-pin, one is 4-pin. Glue stick. And a bunch of materials to be able to create your own scraper. Kind of fun. It's one of the first things that I printed is you print everything for the scraper and then assemble it together yourself. That's the AMS system. That's the PTFE or Teflon tube in the back. There's 2 different wrenches that you'll use, a large one and a small one. If you follow the instructions, it pretty clearly tells you which one to use at which time. There's a whole bunch of supports on the inside. That's the support. They did a good job of making sure that it's not gonna rattle around and accidentally damage itself in transit.
Get out of here!
Once you take some more stuff back out, you can put the lid back on. It's cool that you can remove the lid if you want, but if you have the AMS system, you kind of keep it on there forever. There's me just doing a little wobble test. There's some little rubber or silicone foot pads on the bottom to make sure it doesn't just wobble around or skate around. You want to make sure the writing is facing up on that particular connector. And the instructions indicate that as well. But that's how you plug everything in. Hook up the AMS system to the X1-Carbon. Plug in the tubing. Just push it until it can't go in anymore. There's one particular screw you need to remove to be able to put that little hanging device on the back so you can hang a spool there. Once you have everything hooked up, you can plug in the power cord. And then there's some more screws you need to remove. These ones are a little bit tougher. You can see there it's pretty long. So you're going to be unscrewing for a little bit. It's one on the left, one on the right, one in the back middle. These are some extra plate covers. Kind of nice, they included 2 of them. And you get a fun little note. I was hoping for a love note, but no love note. Just information. That's the QR code that's on the back of the screen that helps you to learn how to install it. I didn't actually watch it. I didn't think I needed it. But you just plug it in, put it into the notches on the back. It slides in place and clicks. So you've got everything set up, you can plug it in, turn it on, and then the real magic begins. Once the screen turns on, you get to see how cool the screen is. It's a decently sized screen. It's pretty easy to touch all the buttons. But you can just go through the initial setup. It's a pretty standard initial setup, selecting your region, connecting to your home network, or business network, whatever you connect to. Then you start to go through the app, connect through the QR code, read all the boring stuff. Then it starts the calibration process, where it's going to make sure it's all set up correctly. It's going to optimize a bunch of different things. Optimize its different sensors and especially the motor. Make sure it reduces noise. It figures out what the resonance frequency is. The resonance frequency, for those that don't know, is every object has what's called a natural frequency. And when the frequency of the environment, so like you shake it, or like even when a plane flies by, you sometimes experience this where your house shakes a little. And if it passes by you at the right moment, your house will start to vibrate at a frequency that hits the natural frequency of the house. And all of a sudden it vibrates significantly louder. You might also experience this in your car when you're on the freeway. Everything starts to vibrate and deflect more than normal. This is the X1-Carbon just doing its thing. Running through all the checks, all the setup, all the calibration. You can see it there optimizing for the motor noise, and it gets really quiet. It's really impressive. Booyah! These are the desiccant slots in the AMS system. You can do something really cool where you 3D print. There's other videos on it. Little holders for the little balls of desiccant that you can put in there, and you dry and they change color. I was going to use the glue stick this time, but I don't recommend using the glue stick at this time. The bed is really high up. You can remove those. The instructions tell you to leave those in until the calibration's complete. Then once it's set up, there's other things you need to update, like the firmware. And once the firmware is updated, there's even more calibration that needs to be done, because the updated firmware had added adjustments to the calibration process. See, if you try to use the glue sticks here, you can get away with it, but if you just wait until it updates the firmware and does the second calibration, the bed should end up at the bottom, and you can use the glue stick then, and it's a lot easier. You can load your spools. It comes with all of these spools, which was pretty impressive. That one is a mix of carbon fiber and PLA. The green is PLA, and then the white is a support PLA. It's PLA that's supposed to be meant specifically for supports. And it is not recommended to use it as your main filament in your print. So as you can see here, once it finishes the second calibration process, it's a lot easier to get back there. The plate is magnetic. It's got two sides to it. One that's meant for PLA, and the other side's meant for other things like nylon, PETG, carbon fiber mixes. and it's more textured. So super cool that it came with that. First thing I decided to print, of course, the little boat. That's where they call it the poop. The poop comes out. My son was very excited to watch for the poop come out. You can see it there doing some scans. It was scanning to see if anything was there. It's going to do some test prints, a little bit of flow calibration, and then it will check it. And it also prints the first layer and checks it. It's got a LiDAR sensor, and then it's also got a camera that detects for things like first layer defects, spaghetti failures, and it'll automatically stop. I've experienced this myself. I've had a spaghetti failure and it stops, so you don't waste anymore, and then it'll ask you if you want to continue or not. There's the little boat being printed. I gave it immediately to my son and he was extremely excited. This is a cool feature. This is a time lapse. It'll automatically do those for you, and it'll do it in 720 or 1080p. You can check out some of the shorts on my channel if you want to see what some of those look like. I have one that's 720 with a Guardian from Zelda, and I have one that's 1080 with where he printed an Onyx from Pokemon. I didn't quite have the scraper yet, so I just used the little razor blade that they included that you're supposed to add to a scraper. I did print it later. First thing I'd recommend printing is a bunch of tools to help you with the 3D printer. There's a tool to help you remove the connectors. Scraper is very helpful, things like that. A poop chute. You can see the poop chute that I printed in the back there. How it doesn't just make a mess. I'd highly recommend just using a waste cardboard box from Amazon to collect a bunch of the waste filament that you're going to produce. But yeah, that was my experience with the X1-Carbon. It's a very cool system. It's pricey. I purchased it with the AMS system, and when you combine them together, you save $100 off the AMS. I've also heard really good things about the P1S and P1P. If you don't care about printing in things like nylon or carbon fiber mixed filaments, the system that I purchased, the X1-Carbon with the AMS system, was $1,450, and then you do get a discount when you bundle certain other things. So I purchased a whole bunch of colored filaments at a pretty good discount, and those ones haven't arrived yet. I got one green PLA filament that arrived like a week after the X1-Carbon arrived. The X1-Carbon took like 3 days to arrive, 3 or 4 maybe. But the colored filament, it's been, I think, about 2 weeks and it still hasn't arrived. It shipped from California and it flew all the way to close to the East Coast, and now is being driven by FedEx back from the East Coast to me. So that was kind of weird. But I have filaments that I've been using in the meantime, so it's not a super big deal. I'm just excited to be able to use the multicolor capabilities of the AMS system, print in multiple colors in one print. It does waste a little more filament because it has to extrude the leftover color that was previously used every time you switch to a new color. But the screen's really nice. The app works pretty great. I'm able to print from the app at work, which is pretty cool. In the morning, I'll just take my print off, and then at work, I'll decide later what I want to print. And I'll just click it on the app, and then it prints at home, and I can see it real time with the camera. The Bambu slicer is pretty good as well so far. These are all just my initial impressions. I've had it for 1 to 2 weeks now, but so far I love it. It's definitely better than my old printer. My old printer is very outdated. I had the Monoprice Select Mini V2, and this one's very hands-off compared to that. The old one, I had to do bed leveling, I had to deal with clogs all the time. And this one, you can literally go onto the Bambu app and find some prints that are already set up for your printer, and just click print. You don't even have to put it through a slicer. And it prints. Everything I've printed so far has printed without supports. I haven't had to deal with prints that have too much of an overhang that would require it, but you can see in my videos some of the stuff that it had bridging at least that needed to be done, and no supports. It bridged great. The boat, the cabin needed some bridging, and it was great. And I've printed things since that require even larger bridging, and they've come out great. If you have issues, you can always recalibrate. You can run tests with it. And there's a decent amount of people online that have used this printer, so you can find forums and things where people talk about problems that they've solved. I haven't tried customer support yet, but I've heard it's good. And yeah, that's my first impressions of the Bambu Lab X1-Carbon. So far, I love it. The family loves it. Able to print toys for my kids, use it as a incentive to clean their room, things like that. And then they can help me design or pick a toy that they want to print. Highly recommend 3D printing in general. If there's ever a point in time where a part breaks that you could replace with a 3D printer and just print in plastic, it's immediately going to start helping pay for itself. I had a part in a refrigerator at our old place. It was a rental house, and it was a clip in the fridge that broke. To get the part online, it was like $50 per clip for the fridge shelf, the shelf that's attached to the door. So I was like, oh, you know what? I'm just gonna 3D print it. That should be simple. So I opened up a CAD software, 3D printed a part that would fit into the door, into the opening where the old clips were. And then I printed it in such a way that I could just get a piece of wood from Home Depot, slot it in, and that would act as the long part of the shelf. And so I only 3D printed the two clips that interface with the door, slotted those in place. They fit perfect. Piece of wood, slot in, and it was great. It was rigid and never had any issues with it. And the landlord thought it was kind of cool. All right, let me know what you think. Let me know if you have a 3D printer. If you do, which one you have and what you like about it. Take care.